And we're back for the fifth part of this CAD class called Basic Extrude. So from now on, we'll be going a bit faster through the series. You know the basics, so I'll be a bit faster when it comes to saving things, doing different operations. So let's get right into it. Today's menu is to create extrusions. So we'll start by creating a file, call it first wheel, saving it into the repo. And just like in the previous video, I'll be creating the wheel. I've already made a parameter called ID at 100, just like in the previous video. So we want to be creating a wheel that has a diameter like in the previous video. Basically, a wheel like this. It's drawn really badly with an inner bore that will be a bit bigger because I want to have a bearing in here. So this will be my bore that goes all the way through my wheel. And then inside of here, I want to have a hollow bore in which I can put a bearing, and a hollow bore here in which I can also put a bearing. These are actually called bearing seats because you take a ball bearing and you can actually press it. That's a ball bearing. You can press it, drawn with a mouse, into the bearing seat, and so it sits the bearing in the bearing seat. So that's a wheel, by the way. So today we'll be creating a wheel with two bearing seats. The front bearing seat will be a bit smaller in diameter than the rear bearing seats. This makes the assembly easier because you can push the arbor through. So inside of here will be an arbor without tolerance issues. So two bearing seats, a wheel. We'll also be making a tire today on the exterior of the wheel. And then inside of here, this will be pretty big, but maybe in green, I'll actually we'll draw our own electric motor into here with a shaft and a keyway that will be mounted on a part which will go inside the bearing seats, like this and like this. You'll see. So basically, we're making a wheel again. So, as I said, let's first do the OD. Let's say that the outer diameter of our wheel will be 200 millimeters. I'm going to close this. Then we need to make a tire. Let's say the tire will be 220, so 10 millimeters of thickness. And then here, that's quite interesting. So we'll actually make the bearing seats for the wheels once again. These two parts. We'll actually draw both of them, so this diameter and this diameter, which is bigger once again than this diameter. We'll draw it all in one face. So we're only going to be sketching this face, and we'll have the inner bore, ID, this one. We'll have the small bearing seat, the big bearing seats, small, big, then outer diameter of the wheel, then in purple, the tire. And then you'll see how we'll do to extrude all of these circles, all made on one single plane here, into all these different features. I think it's the best way to learn the extrude option. So, as we were saying, this is for the tire, this is for the wheel. Let's keep a parameter for ID. That's where the motor will go inside the wheel. Then we can probably put one bearing seat at 120, and then maybe I switch ID down to 80. And then the second bearing seats can do it at 100. Perfect. All is white, so the sketch is fully constrained, as we like to have. I'm going to clean it up a little bit, just so that we read it a bit better. Like this and like this. Perfect. Finished sketch. So, as I said, I'm going to now make my wheel. We can put maybe another parameter for a wheel. since you buy ball bearings online, you don't actually make ball bearings. We could draw a ball bearing, but you buy them online. So we might as well buy a ball bearing and then just import it into Fusion. This will be the next video, components. So here we're only going to be making the seats, and I am making parameters because I have no clue what dimensions I will find bearings for. So ID, OD, and the thickness. Perfect. So we can go and edit our sketch actually, and maybe just change this to bearing thickness rear, and then this to bearing OD front. Perfect. Amazing. Now we'll make one for the length of the wheel. Wheel length. And we can probably do a wheel around 200 millimeters, maybe a bit less. 180 will be fine. Great. So first thing that we'd like to do is to extrude the wheel. So the wheel will be all these parts, because this will be the main bore, so the hole inside the wheel, and this is a tire. So we will be extruding this wheel length. So for extrude, I skipped through it quite fast, but you can press this button or press E on your keyboard. Once you press E or this button, you select the faces that you want to extrude. Once again, they need to be closed faces. So in your sketch, they need to be blue, like here, and you need to be able to select them. So once again, press E, and we're taking these faces. So we selected the 3 faces, and we want to start profile plane, and the distance, you can set it here, here, or drag, is going to be wheel length. Enter. Perfect. Now, the sketch disappeared, so we're going to make it reappear by clicking here and extrude the tire. So the tire will be, of course, the same length as the wheel, but be careful. Here is the first option that we'll be seeing in the extrude menu. The operation type. So here, if I press OK, it's going to join this outer tire to the wheel. So if you open bodies, you'll see that's my wheel. I'll press OK and I'll hide the sketch, and you can see there is no way to differentiate between this extrude, which was the wheel, and this extrude, which was the tire. That's because we chose join. So let's right click and edit feature and change from join to new body. Now we've just created a second body. Let's actually call them. If you slow click, so double click slowly, you can rename things. Wheel hub, then tire. Also, we can't make one extrude. Since we're making 2 different bodies, we need 2 different extrude operations. That's great. Now, let's unhide our sketch once again, and let's extrude the bearing seats. So the front will be in the front. We'll put the front of the wheel in the front of the model. So the front was the small one. So now I press extrude again, I'll choose this one, and I want to cut. So you see, Fusion automatically selects the operation type to cut. If we do join, it'll do nothing. If we do new body, it'll make a new body inside the body. And if we make cut, it will cut the body. So we want to cut it by a depth called bearing front, bearing thickness front. Perfect. So you can see that we start on this plane and we go all the way to here. Perfect. Let's press OK. Now, let's take the extrude option again, and let's choose these 2 planes, because now we're going to be extruding the bearing seat for the rear of the wheel. So this one. Now what we'll do is we'll not create a new sketch. Once again, the idea is to clutter up this bottom history toolbar as little as possible. So you can actually use these different start and extend type options. So here it says that we start at this profile plane. The profile plane is the plane on which the profile is at. So this plane. You can see I start at this plane. I can either go a distance which is this distance that you can see, positive or negative, or I could go to object. So if I choose two objects and I choose this object, now I am starting at this plane and going to the object, no distance. So I could also start offset. So not at this profile plane, but at an offset. I add an offset, and let's say we start at an offset of 40 millimeters. So we now are starting in the middle of the body, offset from this plane of 40 millimeters, and we're going to go to the object. So there's no distance. We could though add an offset here. So we want to go 50 further. I'll go out, or 40 inwards, it'll go in. So now we're cutting in the center of the body, which we don't want to do, but just so you know. So let's cancel this. Let's start at the plane, extend a distance. So actually what we'll do, we'll start at the object. So you can either go to an object or you can actually start at an object. So we'll be extruding this profile from this plane, but starting at this object, and we'll be going inwards of a distance called minus thick rear. Perfect. Okay, I'll actually change my tire. So my tire here, the second extrude, this one, I actually extruded it by the wheel length, which is fine. But just so you can see how it works, I'll actually keep the same profile, but I'll extend two objects. So once again, I've got nothing, but I can clearly extend my tire to this object and make a new body, perfect, and it'll work perfectly well. So there's no difference to doing it this way or the previous way because we had a parameter. Let's say we didn't have a parameter. Let's say the wheel length was 180 and I put that number in to the first sketch here. And then I made the tire sketch and I put 180 again. Okay, it would work. But if I now wanted to change my wheel thickness, wheel length, I would have to change every single extrude of the right amount and the right parameter. But if I choose extend to object, it's always going to go to this object. So I don't care how much I put, whether I put 180 or whether I put wheel length or 200. You see, the wheel automatically gets bigger. So not only does the tire get bigger, also the bearing seats are still at the right place. That's because we only have one sketch and it's all parameterized. So if I do it again, I can edit the first extrude and go 400. And you can see I still have a proper length tire and I still have two proper bearing seats. So let's actually go back to the wheel length. Perfect. And it still works. Once again, that's why you want to make parametric design. So our wheel is pretty good for now. We'll save this. See you soon for the 6th video in the series.